Welcome to Principal Matters. I'm Jessie Haynes, your host, and today, more than any day ever, I need to be on my P's and Q's because I've got sitting with me Dr. Marcia Green, and she is supervisor of dyslexia, reading, and English for Bowman Independent School District. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm almost afraid to say anything. I don't want to break a verb or enunciate wrong.
Well, I'm not going to grade you
won't
today,
grade me?
so you're fine.
All right. You won't tell my boss?
No.
Tell me, what do you guys do over there in that department? I see you all the time with stuff, and I know that reading, English, and every time I make a typo, I know I got to be like, okay, I hope Dr. Green doesn't see this. So what do you do? What are you responsible for the district?
I am responsible for dyslexia from elementary, middle school, and high school. I'm responsible for reading, grades 6 through 12, and English, grades 6 through 12.
Okay. And when you say responsible, you develop the curriculum?
Well, for dyslexia, we have training through different centers like Scottish Rites in Dallas or Nye House in Houston, Region 5, Region 4. Once the teachers have been trained and they receive their certificate indicating that they have been trained, there is a state-required curriculum that we have to follow. We have a handbook that comes from Texas Education Agency that tells us the components of the dyslexia program. So based on the training and the components, then our curriculum will follow exactly what the teachers have been trained to do.
Do we have a large number of students who come to us as dyslexic students?
Since I have been supervisor, the numbers have increased dramatically. At the very beginning, we had quite a few students, but as parents become aware of the different symptoms that the students exhibit, then they are requesting from the classroom teacher or even the dyslexia teacher assigned to the campus to screen to determine if the child is truly a dyslexic or not. And once we have done the screening, we have found that quite a few students are dyslexic and they qualify for the program.
Now, define that. How do I know what that I may be or my child may be dyslexic?
Well, there are a variety of areas with dyslexia, but for the most part, it's the processing of print. And I know in the past, you've heard people say, well, their M's are made like W's and, the letters are backwards or whatever. Now, some of these things are developmental things at an early age. Okay. However, when a child is like at the end of second grade going into third grade and they're still doing these types of things, then it sends up a red flag indicating that there's a possibility that the student is having difficulty processing the print. And sometimes there is a history of dyslexia in a family. And if an older brother or sister or maybe a father or a mother has been identified as a dyslexic, then when they bring that to the attention of the teacher, then we immediately screen the child, because if there's a history of it, there's a good chance that that child will have dyslexia.
So it's considered possibly hereditary?
Yes.
Okay. But the good thing about it is that it's something that is not necessarily not that you can correct it.
Well, we provide accommodations, because if you're dyslexic, you're always dyslexic. It's not going to change. Okay. But through the training, we teach you different strategies and things to help you to decode print, to read and comprehend, because a lot of times when the kids are reading, they will see the first part of the word, and because the neurons are not working at the same time like they do for a regular reader, okay, then they will guess at the ending, which is probably not what it is. So through our instruction, we teach them how to decode and how to figure out the exact word so that the comprehension and the context is not changed.
Okay, so a person seeing, say, the number 31, may think that they saw 13. That's not necessarily
No.
dyslexia. That's
No.
just you not paying attention.
And it could be, it just depends, because see, there are different areas. It could be a vision problem,
Okay.
in addition to the dyslexia. So there are a combination of things that could be happening. Some kids may not have the reading problem, but they might have dysgraphia, which is the writing. So it covers a variety of different skills that the person might
But
have.
your job is to make sure that all of our students are able to learn at whatever, if they come in at whatever
Right.
level with whatever problem. So dyslexic is a problem that you're dealing with, and you're going to make sure that they are able to learn as well as the next child who does not have it.
Most of the students that have dyslexia, they have above average and above intelligence. So they have the capability, it's just the reading inhibits them, and they're not able to perform, read as fast as other kids or whatever. But through the dyslexia training that they receive, or the dyslexia instruction, I should say,
Yeah.
that they receive, then they're able to work with that potential, and they're able to improve because they've gone through years and years of decoding and writing and all of the different components, the phonics, everything, so that they're able to be successful.
Well, I'm sure glad you guys got a handle on that. Just think of how many kids would be lost between the cracks because of that particular complication.
And as a matter of fact, we have one of the best programs around.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And who told you that?
We know from interacting with other districts,
Yeah.
when we go to different conferences and things, and we look at what we're doing, and we look at, what they're doing. And for the state of Texas, we're well ahead, because in other states, dyslexia is still under the special ed umbrella, so the students are receiving like reading mastery rather than actual dyslexia instruction.
Okay, now there you heard it from the head honcho herself that our dyslexia program is one of the best in the state, and if not in the nation.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm glad to know that. And let's talk a little bit about reading and English.
Okay, now reading is 6th grade through 12th grade. We have at the middle school level required reading for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And for TAX, which is our state assessment, they're tested at 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. 8th grade reading is tied to promotion, and the students are allowed, if they do not pass the first time, they're allowed 2 additional times to test. And then if they're not successful that 3rd time, then a grade placement committee will determine whether or not they will move on to 9th grade.
Now, according to state standardized tests, aren't we doing, and in particular BISD students, aren't we doing much, at least on grade level and higher in reading for the most part?
Well, when it comes to our standard for
Okay.
reading, we are between recognized and exemplary, which would be 80% or better
Wow.
per campus. So our reading percentages are very good in comparison. Now, we do have a few students that are not successful. Last summer, we had about, I guess, between 48, 50, a little bit more than that, that needed the 3rd administration for the reading in order to
Okay.
go to 9th grade. But for the most part, we were at 88% or so.
Not bad. In fact, quite good. Huh?
Yes, for
Yeah.
8th grade.
Yeah. So you develop the curriculum. You select the reading list.
Now, what we do for reading and for English, the state gives us text objectives, which are our objectives or our standards.
Okay.
And what we do when we get together for curriculum writing, we study those objectives in all of the areas. With reading, we have everything from the comprehension, from the vocabulary development. So we study them very, very carefully, because we have to make sure that the students have instruction and have mastered all of those objectives prior to the administration of the state assessment. So we study our objectives, and we make sure that our adopted textbook, and we use bridges, and the passages, correspond with the objectives.
Okay.
And we've also written our own skill-focused lessons, we like to call them,
Okay.
where we take the critical thinking objectives as well as the main idea. We have 4 objectives, so we go through and we develop lessons for every 6 weeks period. And then with our 6 weeks test, we include different questions from those skill-focused lessons to make sure that the students have mastered the skills, because most of the critical thinking or the higher order skills are tested more on our state assessments.
So by the time they're into secondary education, you're not teaching 1, 2 syllable words. When you're saying they are reading, most kids come to you able to read anyway by the time
Correct.
you get to
Yes.
secondary school. But your challenge is to have them to read on grade level or better or higher, right?
Yes, and to read critically.
Critically, where you truly understand,
Right.
you can
Interpret.
write about and
Right.
interpret what. Okay, yeah. So you don't just get to read it and stand up in front of a class and say, "I read this," but you also have to be able to interpret it to someone else.
Right,
Tell
and to
somebody
analyze,
about what you read.
to figure out what an author's viewpoint is, to look at characterization, the different characters in a passage or in a selection, to make sure that you understand the different moods, the tone. There are quite a few skills that they have to master for their assessment. Now, when we get to high school, we don't have required reading for 9th grade through 12th grade, but we do offer reading improvement or developmental reading for those kids who have not passed their state assessment, who might need some type of additional reading instruction. But for the most part, our enrollment in those classes are very small because the students are very successful with reading once they get to high school, and usually our state assessment at 9th grade, which is a reading assessment only, they're able to do well on that. So most of the kids are in regular classes rather than in a reading class.
And we never really think about that as how important it is, but you think, okay, reading, you're not just doing it for enjoyment, as many of us do. You read a novel, read a book, but it's for livelihood, huh? Because you got to be able to read instructions and understand. You got to be able to read
Right.
your contract and decide if that's
Right.
what you really want to work for.
Well, what we do in the reading classes, every discipline area has a different pattern.
Yeah.
For example, there's a way to read math, there's a way to read science, there's a way to read social studies, there's a way to read literature, there's a way to read nonfiction, there's a way to read fiction. So what we do in our reading classes, we're teaching the kids how to read in all of these different areas. So when we're reading science, we tell them you're looking for cause and effect, problem, solution. When you're reading math, you have your problem, you have your methods, you have your solution. So there are different patterns that we're having them do, because if we only teach them how to read using story structure, it's not applicable to science, it's not applicable to the other areas. So when we teach reading, we're really helping them to be able to read and understand all of the different subject areas.
Okay. Way beyond the basics, ABC.
Right.
Well, all right. And what are you doing with the teachers to help them to be able to transfer this knowledge that you're sharing with them about how to bring the best out of students?
Well, we have a lot of professional development, and we start off in August with our district-wide staff development, and during that time we have 6th grade reading teachers together, 7th grade reading teachers, 8th grade reading teachers. We have the 6th grade English, so they're in their groups, and then we go through our text objectives. We review those all of the time.
Okay.
Then we look at our scope and sequence, how we have placed those objectives and connected them or coordinated them with our adopted textbook. Then we develop skill-focused lessons that give additional practice. So when we do that professional development, the teachers come away with a big packet for the whole year of, and it's kind of like a script, because we go through and give the definitions, the explanations, the examples, and then they have guided practice, they have individual practice, and there's a quiz.
Okay.
So we make sure that they're able to master that. And then throughout the year, we have staff developments through the district, and then we, refine those things. But and then we do curriculum writing all year long. We work
So-
on Saturdays. Once we get our 6 weeks test results, we have an item analysis which tells us which skills the kids are not being that successful with. So then we go back and then we look at our skill focus and we say, how can we change it? So throughout the year, we're developing and distributing additional practices
So
for reading.
You're not just, okay, here's a plan for the year. You are monitoring that plan every day
Yes.
and correcting as you need to
Right.
based on the needs of the students.
A good example, we've had to evacuate a lot for hurricanes in the past few years.
Yeah.
And I believe it may have been Rita, which was our
Okay.
first major one. When we got back, we had missed 10 days of school. So curriculum writers got together on Saturdays, and we developed homework assignments and in-class activities to bridge the gap for those days that we were out, that the students were able, so that when we did our state assessment, we would have mastered and covered all of those skills. So we do those types of things if,
And you did
unforeseen
not
things.
miss a beat with that because we came in good-looking numbers.
Yes.
We got to take a break.
Okay.
And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about writing
Yes.
and all the other stuff that you do over as head of that division, all right?
Thank you.
All right. Hey, we'll be right back with Dr. Marcia Green. She's head of curriculum writing for dyslexia, reading, and writing. Well, supervisor, right?
Yes.
All right. I'll get my title right. Welcome back. We're going beyond Writing 101 because we've got with us Dr. Marcia Green, and she is a person in charge of writing and reading as well as dyslexia programs for Bowman Independent School District. Glad you stuck around to tell us a little bit more. We covered dyslexia a little bit. We talked a little bit about reading. Now I want to know about writing.
Okay. In the past, for writing, with our state assessments, we've always had writing, I guess you can say, in chunks, because at that time they'd have persuasive writing, how to or process writing, comparison, contrast, and description. And based on the teens, these were the specific areas. Well, with the text objectives, they got more, I guess you would say, coordinated with college writing, because at the college level, we do the writing process. So the text objectives introduce the writing process as a requirement for writing. So from writing programs, we move to the writing process. And the writing process has made a big difference for the district because now we're going through all of the different stages for writing. So by studying those text objectives and developing the writing program, we make sure at all levels from 6th grade on that we cover the writing process, from the planning or the pre-writing for the draft, the brainstorm, all of the different components are covered. And instead of focusing on one type of writing, we incorporate a variety of patterns within that writing composition.
Now let me, because I remember my first real writing lesson where I had to get a grade on it, and it was like, okay, write a letter. And it was always, and all of us got this little thing in this class, we'd have to write this letter. And it always started, Dear Aunt Alice, how are you? Fine, I hope. Tell me that's not still in the curriculum.
No.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
what we do, now letter writing is a part of writing. All of the different types of writing. What we do, we look at the writing process. And then from there, we have the students write a variety of forms. So they might write instructions, they might write description,
Okay.
they will write process papers, they will write persuasive, they will do analytical papers, so they're doing a variety of forms in letter writing, business letters, personal letters, all of those are components.
Oh,
because
that is
at
so
one
good to
ti-
know then. Yeah.
At one time with our state assessment, a lot of times the prompt would say, write a letter to the principal or the community or whatever. So letter writing is still important. Now the prompts are, broad type prompts, but the students need to have a variety of practice with the different forms, because in their using their creativity, when they respond to the prompt, they might want it to be in the form of a letter, or they might want it to be a persuasive paper, but within that writing, they're including comparison, contrast, they're including description, definition, and all of the other different types of writing.
Let's see, that, you guys know that writing is near and dear to my heart. Only written one book. I used to be a news reporter and wrote stories every day, and now I'm in public relations. But I tell kids when I go out and do this talk about why you want to enter a career in writing, and I tell them one of the first things that I found out is that you can really make money at it. And I tell the story of a company that came to me, and they were about to lose a multi-million-dollar contract, and they were not ready to go to the legal aspect of it yet. So what they did was ask me if I could look at all of their situations, what had happened, what brought them to the point of being about to lose their contract. And one letter, one 2-page letter, explaining the situation, what they were doing to correct it, and apologizing for the situation, et cetera, et cetera. Contract was re-awarded to them, several $1 million. Of course, they paid me $100 for it. My next life, I know to ask for more. But that's how important writing is.
Well, writing is very important, because even when you read articles or books, in order to understand what the author is saying, then the writing has to be clear. So not only are we teaching them to write using the components of the essay or composition, but we're also talking about grammar, the placement of words, the placement of phrases, the placement of clauses, so that everything is in the proper place, so that whatever your meaning is, it will be the meaning that the reader will get.
Well, I wish that you had under your auspices somebody who can write directions on how to put together a bicycle. Because every time I try, I'm missing something. It's a comprehension is missing right there, but that's important, huh? Instructional writing too.
Yes.
So we've done pretty well. Or are we tested at all on writing on the
yes, we are.
state level?
We're tested at 4th and 7th grade,
okay.
And as the secondary English supervisor, 7th grade is our writing alone component. Well, they do reading, but I mean writing is a focus. Then when we get to high school, there are short answer responses for 9th grade, but then the composition is with 10th grade and 11th grade exit.
Okay.
So the text objectives for 11th grade say that the composition should be flawless, or as close to flawless as possible. So it's important for us to make sure that the students get sufficient writing practice, and that we're able to guide them correctly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have added for middle school, because students are just beginning to write between elementary and middle school, is the My Access writing program. And our program the program is tied to College Board, which
really?
means that the scoring is similar to AP essay scoring.
Okay.
It's very hard scoring. So when students start out and they start out with a 1 or a 2 on My Access, and they work up to a 4.7 or 5 or 6, then we know that they should be very successful when it comes to tax writing.
Yeah, I was wondering how you would work in computers and technology into this writing deal. So you were saying that a student for a class can write an essay, perhaps.
Yes.
And log on to My Access,
yes.
the writing program, and to help them understand where their weaknesses are, that program will analyze what they've written, tell them what their weaknesses are, tell them to go back and do it over, that kind of stuff.
What it does, when the student submits the composition, our state assessment has a rubric that includes focus and coherence, ideas, the mechanics, those things. Well, in the My Access program, and also with AP scoring, they're looking at these same components.
Yeah.
So when the student submits the composition to the My Access program and it's scored, they get a breakdown of how well they did in all of these areas. So there's a score for ideas, there's a score for mechanics, there's a score for organization. They get that. Also, the composition that they've submitted, if there is an error, it's bracketed and pointed out, but the student will have to go back and identify what the problem is and correct it. It will not correct it for the student.
Not giving them answers.
No answers.
Okay.
It's just giving them direction. It's if we were scoring it ourselves and then there was a run-on sentence or a fragment or a misspelled word, then we would just note misspelled word or run-on.
Yeah.
That's what the program does,
Now
but
you go
it
figure
isolates
it out.
it isolates it
Yeah.
right next to the run-on. So if the
Okay.
run-on is to the left, then the bracket is to the right, and it says run-on, and then the student goes back to figure out how do I correct this.
Well, that must help teachers a lot, because I know the grading papers that I taught ages ago at Norfolk State University for a little bit, and grading papers, especially when you're talking essays and writing articles, if you've got a group of 30 students and each one has to do 5 papers a semester, that's a lot of reading, writing, correcting. So
Yes.
this helps the teacher out a lot, and the student is helped because you can go directly to what the problem fixes.
It's immediate feedback for the
Wow.
student. And it does help the teacher because before becoming supervisor, I was 8th grade English teacher.
Okay.
And so having a 6-week grading period, students were writing every day. So I'm scoring every day, everything from summaries to book reports to major essays once a week. So it was a lot of scoring. With the My Access program, the students can write every day, submit every day, and get immediate feedback every day, which is a plus for the student.
And the teacher doesn't have to spend all weekend, every night,
Grading papers.
falling asleep at midnight with papers in bed with them.
Yes.
Yeah, that is interesting. Let's talk a little bit about you. Since you used to be a teacher, how did you get into education?
That's an interesting story. I started out not in education. It was my goal to be a writer.
Yes.
And so I majored in English and Spanish because I wanted to do newspaper work or magazine work, and I wanted to be a foreign correspondent. And so English and Spanish were my double major.
Yeah.
And then I went on and I got my first master's in Spanish. I was heading that way, and then I was going to do the master's in English, and then I was ready to embark on my career. But somehow when I was doing the master's in Spanish, they pegged me for a teacher. And I had a fellowship, and they decided that they wanted some to work with professors or do research or teach. And I was hoping that I would do the research because I love reading in the library.
Yeah.
And but I was selected to be a Spanish 131 teacher.
Okay.
So they gave me a book and they put me in the classroom. And I guess I became compassionate about education and students. And, when students had difficulty learning, I wanted to
Yeah.
do everything that I could to help them to learn. And once I graduated, my first job was at Lamar University. And I taught Spanish first and worked in the lab. And then an English position became available and I jumped on it. And
Okay.
I was there for 21 years before coming to Beaumont
You were
Independent
at
School
Lamar
District.
for 21 years?
Yes.
On the faculty there?
Yes,
So are you a native of Beaumont?
yes.
Okay.
I
homegrown.
graduated from Hebert High School.
Hebert High. All right. Okay, from Hebert High to Lamar University, and then at Lamar, you studied at Lamar, huh?
No, I was Bishop College in Dallas for
Okay.
the undergraduate, Stephen F. Austin for the first master's, and my second master's was from Lamar University, and then my doctor of philosophy from Texas Woman's University in Denton.
All right, you go, girl. Okay, and now, when you came to Beaumont ISD, you started out as
8th grade English teacher,
okay.
and I loved it.
And how did you get out of the classroom into the supervision?
Well, when the supervisor before me retired, they had made the position an English reading position. And the criteria was you had to have English and reading. And for English people, most of the time there's a social studies or a foreign language combination. If you're a reading teacher, you're strictly reading.
Okay.
And someone on the staff just happened to know that I was sitting in an 8th grade English classroom with the PhD in curriculum instruction and reading.
Wow.
And I had the equivalent of the master's in English and then the supervision master's. And they said, she has English and reading.
And they tapped you.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, I've also always wanted to know, how do you go about selecting books for reading? Because there's some books that I've seen on a reading list, and I'm thinking, why in the world would they want a child to read that stuff? Tell me what goes into that.
Well, the reading lists are developed by the teachers.
Okay.
Sometimes the reading lists are unique to the campus. We do not do, at this point, a reading list for the whole district.
Okay.
So the teachers, say at Ozan, at Westbrook, at Central, those departments get together and they decide these are the books that we would like the kids to read at 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. They do the same thing at middle school. They say, well, this will be a good book for 6th grade. And then a lot of research has gone into it. What we do, we look at the books, and most of the time the teachers have read the books before they put them on the list, and they decide that it would be a good book for the students to read. Now, we also have accelerated reader programs throughout our middle schools, and the books that are available for the program become part of the library, and then based on the results of the students' standardized assessment, you know, their inventory, and whatever level they're reading at, there are certain books for those levels. So those books become a part of their reading list as well.
Well, you've got some interesting opportunities coming up. How are you going to work in, say, the readers like the Kindles and the new Mac reader?
Well, English and reading, I'm just going to put it this way, English and reading is not as fortunate as some subject areas. So we have to kind of get things a little bit at a time. And we have been very fortunate because we do not have a lot of computer access because, you know, they're kind of identified for certain areas. But we were given Neo 2s for our writing program.
What is that?
And the Neo 2, it's kind of a word processor type. It's not a laptop or computer, but there's a receiver that connects to the teacher's computer, and the students are able to write. It's kind of like a big calculator, but it's a word processor. And they're able to type their compositions on the Neo 2, and then when they submit it, it goes to the teacher's computer, but it's still the immediate feedback. But we don't have to leave the classroom to go to a computer lab. We just pass out the Neo 2s to the students, and then they work at their desks.
Like the little mini notebook.
It's not
without a brain.
It's not mini. It's a nice size.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's a nice size.
So
it kind of fits the size of the desk.
Okay, and they can create right there without having a lot of worry about whether or not you can read their writing because it's all on the computer.
Yes.
Hey, we have really enjoyed talking to you. I have. Wow, time does fly when you're talking about some of your favorite topics. Reading and writing, that's #1 on my list. We've been talking to Dr. Marcia Green. She's head of those programs here in Beaumont Independent School District. Join me next week when we talk about another hot topic on Principal Matters. I'm Jessie Haynes, your host. Hi, I'm Jessie Haynes, your host for Principal Matters. I have with me the principal of one of the most popular schools in Beaumont. She is Susan Brown, principal of Curtis Elementary School. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are popular, right?
Oh, our school, yes. We're proud of our school.
Yeah. Well, tell me, you guys are rated by Texas Education Agency as what this year?
An exemplary school. And
Would that be exemplary, the top of the line? Wow.
yes, and we're very proud of that
How'd
rating.
you do it? How'd you do it this year?
Well, we worked hard. fantastic faculty, wonderful teachers, and we did a lot of outside-the-box thinking to assist our students that needed extra help. And then, of course, the students have a tremendous part in it because they wanted to be exemplary, and so they did their best, and they were successful.
So how many students do you have over there? About?
This year we have about 530.
Wow. So you're a packed house almost.
Yes, we are.
So to speak.
Almost, yes.
In fact, your school is one of the schools listed to receive a new school under the bond program, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes.
So right now you're located at?
Well, I guess you could say we're located on the curve at 6225 North Circuit in Beaumont.
On the curve.
On the curve.
And for those of us who are like, okay, I know where it is, but over by the fields, the baseball fields, the
we're by
softball
the
fields?
Little League field,
Little
the
League
West
fields.
End Little League field,
Okay.
which means that we're behind Dallin Road. Westgate comes up to Peyton, and then on our other side, North Circuit comes into our school. And
So most of your students, when you think of the neighborhood, they come from within a couple of miles of that school, right?
the majority of our students either walk to school, ride bikes, or we have a carpool. And so if you're thinking of boundaries in general, you can think of Gladys on one side and Calder or Phelan on the other side. In just a general description.
Truly a neighborhood school.
Mhm, we are.
Okay. So then, if your students are walking to school mostly, you don't have a whole big yellow dogs passing through the community that much.
No, not
No?
at this time.
And obviously, you've got a strong parent program.
Oh, we have wonderful parents. A very active PTA. They've been a wonderful, strong group of parents for many, many years. And that's really one of our claim to fame because our parents are very active and interested in the school. And they want to help with the academic success of their students.
So I see them over there volunteering all the time.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
And I see that they built a playground. Tell me some of the things that they do.
One of the things they do that is hectic, but they've been so diligent in doing it, is we have a fantastic carnival in the fall, and that's their main moneymaker. And they do a wonderful job. They bring in the different blow-up rides and activities, and all the classrooms participate. We've been fortunate in the last few years that Westbrook students have also come over and helped with the volunteering spots in our booths and on the activities. So it's truly a community effort, and we had a little trouble when we had the hurricanes. You know, we had to delay, but
Gee,
we've always
yeah.
had that fall date, and it's worked well for us, and that's their main money maker. Then at the end of the year, they've started doing we call it it's actually an activity that all the classes will participate in. It's kind of like an Olympics Day because each classroom picks a country and studies a little bit about the country, prepares a flag, and then of course we have our opening ceremonies, and then we go from there into events. You know, we have the track events and so forth, so which takes a lot of work and effort, but those are the two big things they do throughout the year. And then constantly throughout the year, they're there to help us if we need a volunteer parent to listen to a child read, or just however they can assist us, they're always there.
Now that is really interesting. So your children are already into this global thing long before they get out of elementary school.
Well, they seem to enjoy it, and I think it's a good way to let them learn about other countries, because really when you look at when do they study that historically, it's not until 6th grade, and so it kind of gives them an eye view of different countries and so forth before they go into 6th grade.
So you got this formula together, great students, great parents. How about the community volunteers? Do you have a number of people, say, from corporate volunteers that have kind of adopted you guys and help you out?
Well, we have a wonderful grandmother volunteer who comes in, and this is our first year to have a grandmother volunteer.
Yeah.
Of course, Lamar students come in. We were at the big event yesterday, our first graders.
Yeah.
We have the events with, gosh, I just went blank.
Because you got so much going on over there. I mean,
But we also have volunteers who aren't even connected to our school that say that they would like to come. And the thing is they're loyal. It's unbelievably how loyal they are, and our students love having them.
Okay. And as critical teachers, when you've got about how many teachers or total staff over there?
We have around 36 teachers total staff. When you think of teachers that we share with schools, like our dyslexia teacher and so forth, we have probably about 60,
Yeah.
counting every staff member there.
So what's so unique about your teachers, your staff, that help to catapult and maintain this exemplary attitude of excellence?
Boy, I could talk all day on that one. I can't brag enough about them.
Yeah.
I think one thing is that they truly work as a team. I think that they try to be supportive both between grade levels and in their own grade level. And they're always striving to come up with a creative way so the kids will not only have to do the book work, but also can do a lot of hands-on and things that make learning enjoyable. And they're an experienced staff, and they're not afraid to try something new. And I think that's a big one right there, because you have to continually strive to add to what you're doing in the classroom to make it viable and to keep up with how children learn. And our staff does an excellent job of that.
Yeah, okay. So that was probably one of those things you mentioned. You guys operate outside of the box when you need to make sure a child gets
Correct.
to know what they need to know. So some of the other outside of the box things that you do, you mentioned your arts program where students are doing plays.
Oh, that's our show production group. They're the Show Pro group.
Show Pro. Elementary.
Elementary, Show Pro.
Okay.
And they really are like, I guess you would say, young pros. And there are students who are interested in doing the theatrics. So they love to sing, they dance, they're actors and actresses. And 2 days a week they meet, and they do different performance type events. Like they'll put together maybe an Elvis Presley musical for our Carnival Day. Each year, at the end of the year, they have a big production. The first one they did, which was very successful and was just unbelievable because all the parent work, student work, teacher work that went into it, was Dr. Seuss Jr. And then last year we did Annie Jr. And this year we were going to be doing Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory Jr. And you say the junior because they're abbreviated plays that you can purchase for the appropriate age groups.
Probably just how Annie was founded, huh? Came from a school like yours, how they found the real Annie at a school like yours.
And we've tried to add to that because volunteerism is an important part. And I think if you look across the country, a lot of schools are trying to add that to what their students do. And that's one thing our Show Pro group does, as well as our student council, which is a 5th grade group. And they've adopted a assisted living home. And they've been very successful with that. And the seniors living there are, even call and ask them to come over. It's not just us calling and saying, can we come over? So that's been good for our students.
Start them young, train them up in the way in which they should go. Huh? So they're already out there volunteering with an assisted living group.
And in fact, I had a group that came to me just the other day, very environmentally concerned, and they got a teacher to sponsor a club. So we have a new club starting. Ms. Teague is sponsoring it, and they are petitioning, I believe it's the city council, to bring back the recycling bins and so forth. And then on our campus, they're going to get collection places for different things and help to keep our campus cleaner. Because being right next to West End Little League, with all the goodies they serve at night, we get a lot of the wind blows.
It's on your campus suddenly.
Exactly. And then our 1st grade group, it was their turn to do the PTA meeting and presentation. And they did a fantastic job just last night, taking a little eco play and singing and dancing, and they had parts. And I was tremendously impressed, as well as the parents, that they were able to memorize such script and songs. So we try to keep our children active and being concerned about other things, even as young as kindergarten and 1st grade. And as I said, the teachers do a wonderful job in working with them and giving them other outlets than just what's in the classroom.
So have you found this kind of extracurricular activity that you're doing also helps them to be more confident in the academic activities?
Oh, definitely. And, theater arts grade now comes in the classroom. And so this gives them an opportunity to where they go back to the, I guess you would say, old way school, where we're going to start actually saying, okay, for the theater arts grade, we will be reciting poems and doing things like that that actually help them with their presentation before groups. It builds their confidence.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will help them also memorize their math facts because they get used to memorizing. So.
Yeah. Okay. And you also have an athletic team coming up next
Oh,
school.
yes. Our fourth graders are tremendously excited. Coach Thaxton has decided that next year that we'll enter the district elementary competition for basketball. And I have to warn the other elementary schools, we have some tremendous fourth graders that you will see on the court next year. And we expect to be successful in that.
And it's the Curtis
Colts.
Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts.
The Colts.
All righty. Look out, team.
Right. They're strong Colts. That's all I can say. We're proud of them.
All right. And who's the coach again?
Coach Thaxton.
Okay. All right. So we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about what's going on at Curtis Elementary. I thank you for being patient, and finally, I'm so glad you showed up.
It's my pleasure.
You guys, let me tell you. She was shy of getting in front of you guys, but thank you for coming in. I'm going to be right back. We've got a lot more to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. I'm Jessie Haynes. We'll be right back with Susan Brown, principal of Curtis Elementary School. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Jessie Haynes, and we're talking with Susan Brown here on Principal Matters. Susan is principal of Curtis Elementary School. Okay, how did you get into education?
That could be a long-winded story.
Okay, we only have 15 minutes, but okay.
I'll just hit the high points then. But I never really planned on being in education. But my father insisted that I get a teaching certificate while I was in college. And as fathers usually are, he was right.
Father
Because
knows best.
after I graduated, I ended up out at a Marine Corps base, Shreveport, North Carolina, a very small community. At that time, big tobacco growing area. And my first job was in actually a high school, but it was an 8th through 12th grade setting. And the 8th grade, which is where I was employed, was one-room schoolhouse.
No way.
Yeah, that had been condemned for about 60 years or so, so it may not even be standing now.
Are you serious?
I am, and they divided the building into 3 sections. So there were 3 8th grade teachers. And the building kind of sloped as you went in. So fortunately, I had the first classroom. And the last classroom was bordering where the fields and woods started. And so it wasn't uncommon that every once in a while a snake or something like that would be on those windows.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember the first cold snap, and I came in, and the students were all running around the room with these paddles. And I thought, what's going on? And the field mice had come in, and that's the way they scared them out of the building. And so
Are you serious?
I am. It was an interesting year. I'll never forget it.
And you stayed in teaching after that?
After that, I thought, where could I find something as interesting? So, yes, and that's how every time I kind of get, oh, why did I do this? I always think, well, what else could give you something different to do every day? And there really isn't, as far as I've come up with, another profession that can do that for you.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Beaumont?
Ended up in Beaumont after my husband got out of the Marine Corps, my
Okay.
ex-husband, and have been here since.
Okay. And so you started teaching here at what school?
I stayed out of teaching for a while with my 2 sons, and then when I came back in, I was fortunate to get a job at Vincent when it was a middle school. And then when that became the 4th and 5th grade center, I moved to Marshall and was there until I went into administration. And I have taught mainly 7th and 8th grade children, but I enjoyed middle school.
Okay. And did you kind of go from middle school to assistant principal or direct to principal? How did you?
Well, actually, I did. I went from Marshall. Mr. Terry Ingram at that time gave me a chance to be an assistant principal there. And then from there, I went to central office where I was a supervisor for the Gifted and Talented in Social Studies program. And then from there, I came to Curtis as principal.
Okay, all right. You've had a pretty long career. How many years altogether in education?
Oh my gosh, let me think. If you count my years in North Carolina.
Yeah, we want to count those, especially the year the snake came in,
Yeah.
and the mice. Okay.
28 years.
Yeah, in fact, we'll probably give you 10 extra for those.
Yes, I mean, that was an experience.
Unbelievable. Well, hopefully you've not had those kinds of experiences where the mice are there, the snakes are there in BISD, and I know you're getting a new school, and it's not because of any of that kind of stuff, right?
Oh, no, no, no. I think they, in fact, the community's excited about the new school, and
Yeah.
so are the students and the teachers, and we just, school buildings eventually, for example, the 60-year condemned one-room school building that I started out with, they just eventually don't work anymore for what you need as the technology and so forth progresses.
What was that town?
Pardon?
What was that town?
Where the school is?
Yeah.
It was Craven County, North Carolina. It was outside Cherry Point Marine Corps Base and outside New Bern City. So I was in the big city area, of course, in
Okay, I'm
North
still
Carolina.
waiting on a town I've heard of, but okay. Somebody over there.
We were south down by the beautiful beaches. We were
Oh.
not north where Durham and Raleigh were.
Okay, I like that area by the beaches. Yeah, well, hopefully somebody came down and passed the bond issue. So that school is now no longer holding classes, right?
I would hope not.
Yeah, right. Whew. Well, tell me, what would you offer as far as advice to young people who want to go into teaching?
The first thing I would say is I kind of learned the roundabout way. I think that education is probably one of the most exciting fields that you can get into today, but it's also the most challenging. And things are changing quite a bit as to expectations. I can think back when I was in high school, and my teachers weren't expected to do much other than stand up, deliver a lecture, and we did the rest. So they didn't take on a lot of responsibilities that the schools are now doing. But now we have more, both parents working, busier schedules. So it is challenging because you're now responsible for making sure the children learn because we have proficiency tests. Making sure that you're a good communicator with the parents so that you and the parent can work together, because that's essential for a child's success and for a teacher's success.
Yeah.
And so the profession has changed, but it's still challenging. And I think it's one of the professions that when you have success, it's just an unbelievable feeling. It's like an adrenaline rush that, yes, we came from here and now we're here.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is challenging. I would say that you really need to look before you declare a major at this point in time. You really need to look and see where are the needs right now in education, and gear your study to that, because needs change. But once you get your certification, you can also change as the needs change.
Because nowadays, you may not need as many history teachers as you do math teachers, or you may not need is that what you mean?
Well,
as far as needs, help me with that.
Okay, now you've kind of hit on a sore point for me.
Because you're a history teacher.
Well, when you look at the purpose of courses, and all of us understand how important to our economy and to the success of our nation science and math are. So yes, we need to be promoting that. We need to encourage our children and make them confident in those areas. But when you also look at the country we're a country of immigrants. And the social studies program is really the way that we teach people new to our country, new to our system, how to be good citizens. Okay. So social studies is still important. And sometimes,
Great point.
Well, and sometimes I think we forget that.
Yeah.
But yes, of course, now the things that are out there would be the science and the math. And in elementary school, our goal is to make them help them with mastery at each level so that none of those stepping stones are left out, so that by the time they hit middle school, they're ready to go on to the higher level mathematics and sciences. Because sometimes we leave out a little piece, and if they're not all there, it makes it much more difficult, especially when they get into the high school program.
Well, I am so glad you corrected me on that social studies. That is really important.
Well, as the former social studies supervisor, I have to say something.
Absolutely, because how we relate to each other nowadays, and I would imagine if we get a little bit more of that, a little more understanding of each other's cultures.
Well, it is important because so much when you look in the workplace and everything is through a team effort. It's not, sometimes you work as an individual, but a lot of working as a productive citizen is a team member. And so a lot of the focus of what we do in school is to try to reinforce the skills that students need even at a young age, to be productive and successful later on when they're in college and in the workforce.
Well, and I just think about, you've got elementary age kids out there working with senior citizens. That's a
We do.
that's a special skill. So I'm appreciative of that. Okay, but we do still need more math and science teachers.
Oh,
too,
definitely,
right? Okay.
definitely. And so if I were going into the profession today, I would look and say, okay, where would I have the best chance of getting a job? I think they've added some observation time into the program, which I think is great, because sometimes you really don't know. You may think, oh, I don't think I want to be elementary, but when you observe in an elementary setting, you may say, hey, that's really what I want to do, and vice versa.
The observation time, is that the old-fashioned student teaching?
No, they've added observation hours on plus the student teaching. Now, I have found that, of course, we have alternative certification now where people can get their degree and then go through alternative programs. And we have many alternatively certified teachers who are good. The drawback that they have, or the experience that they lack, that they have to work extra hard for, is the part of the teacher certification program in a regular 4-year degree that teaches kind of basic classroom management, and things that you would practically use in the classroom. But the most important thing is to be content strong, to understand that you are working not just in your subject area, but also being I guess you would say a PR person is very important. Even, in the classroom, you would say, oh, well, why is that important? Well, think of all the children that you're talking to each day, and you're building their confidence, and
that's your
the
target
parents,
audience.
right?
Yes.
And the parents that you need to communicate, and you want them to know that you're on their side and you want to help them and their students. So there's a lot of communication skills that are important no matter what content area you're teaching.
That's interesting to know. Well, of course, if there's anybody out there really excited about the possibility of teaching, we already know you cannot go to her school because her teachers are so happy they are not leaving, right? You tell me your teachers have been there a number of years.
Yes, we have very little turnover in our teaching staff at Curtis.
Yeah, okay. Well, we got to go already.
Well, thank you for having me. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be.
Did not
I
hurt.
appreciate that. No, it didn't.
Okay, all right. Thanks. So we've been talking to Ms. Susie Brown, principal of Curtis Elementary School. And log on to their website. They've got lots of interesting things going on, and you can check in to the website and see what's happening at Curtis Elementary School 24 hours a day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Come back and join us next week, and we'll be talking to another principal about a principal matter. I'm Jessie Haynes, your host.